My name is Aaron Hagaan, and in 2013, I had a near-death experience that changed my life forever. I was a soldier in the United States Army's 82nd Airborne Division. Years of service had left me with severe injuries, and the only way to manage the pain was through strong medication. One night, after taking my prescribed dose, something went terribly wrong. My body couldn't handle it, and I slipped into unconsciousness. But instead of darkness, I found myself in a place beyond anything I had ever imagined. I remember the moment I left my body. It was as if I had been lifted out of myself, floating above my physical form. I saw my body lying motionless on the bed, the empty pill bottle nearby. I should have felt fear, but instead, there was an overwhelming sense of peace. I realized I was no longer in pain. The agony that had been my daily companion for years was gone. Then, in an instant, I was pulled away, faster than anything I could describe, into another realm. At first, everything was light. A brilliant golden glow surrounded me, radiating warmth and love. I felt a presence near me, something powerful yet comforting. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was guiding me. I tried to speak, but my thoughts were heard without words. "You are not here by accident," the presence said. "You have been brought here to see." Before I could ask what that meant, the light around me started to change. It dimmed slightly, and suddenly I was standing in what looked like a vast city. But this was unlike any city on Earth. The buildings were immense, stretching endlessly into the sky, made of materials I couldn't recognize. The air was thick with energy, like an invisible force moving through everything. People, if I could call them that, moved around with purpose. They glowed with a faint light, yet their expressions were heavy, burdened with sorrow. I knew, without being told, that this was a vision of Earth's future. "This is what is coming," the presence said. "This is humanity's fate if it does not change its path." As I walked through the city, I saw no joy, no laughter. People were completely absorbed in strange devices, their eyes hollow, their faces emotionless. They no longer spoke to each other. Instead, they communicated through the devices, their voices flat and lifeless. Families sat together but were worlds apart, trapped in their own digital prisons. It was as if humanity had willingly given up its soul. Then I was shown something even more disturbing. I saw a great machine, massive and pulsing with a dark energy. People lined up in front of it, their faces blank as they stepped forward. One by one, they were given something: implants, chips, or devices embedded into their skin. The moment it happened, their light dimmed, their connection to something greater severed. I understood that they had lost their free will. This machine, this system, controlled them now. "Humanity is walking into this future willingly," the presence said. "They do not see the chains being placed upon them." I wanted to scream, to warn them, but they could not hear me. They did not even see me. My heart ached as I watched parents allowing their children to be marked, believing it was for their own good. I saw people surrender their thoughts, their emotions, their very souls to this system, believing it would bring them peace. But it was a lie. The more they submitted, the more they lost themselves. And then I saw something even more terrifying. In the distance, beyond the towering structures, beyond the glowing screens and lifeless bodies, a darkness loomed. It was alive, intelligent, and waiting. The presence beside me spoke again. "This is not just a loss of freedom. This is a battle for the soul of humanity, and it is losing." I felt a deep sorrow, unlike anything I had ever known. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The truth was too important. Then, as suddenly as I had arrived, I was pulled away, higher and higher, until the city faded from view. The presence had more to show me, and I knew this was only the beginning. The entity led me forward, and the dark void around us seemed to shift. Suddenly, we were no longer in the blackness. Instead, we stood above Earth, looking down at it from a high place. The planet spun slowly beneath us, and I could see it in perfect detail. The vast oceans, the towering mountains, the sprawling cities. Yet something was deeply wrong. This is where humanity is headed, the entity said. His voice was calm, but his words carried weight. At first, everything seemed normal. People went about their lives unaware of what was coming. Then, I saw the changes. The sky darkened, not from a storm, but from something unnatural. The air itself became thick, heavy, and poisoned. I could hear the cries of people, some in pain, others in terror. I saw wars breaking out across the world, conflicts that started small but grew into something uncontrollable. Cities burned, governments collapsed. Lawlessness spread like a disease. People turned against each other, not just over resources, but over beliefs, fears, and desperation. Those who once called each other neighbors and friends became enemies overnight. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. The entity made sure I saw everything. This is what happens when greed and power go unchecked, he said. Humanity was given everything it needed to thrive, but it chose destruction instead. As I watched, I saw leaders rise who promised salvation, but they only brought more ruin. They spoke of peace while preparing for war. They claimed to bring justice, but their actions were fueled by selfish ambition. People followed them, blinded by false hope, only to realize too late that they had been deceived. Then I saw something even more terrifying. Strange beings appeared among the chaos, beings that were not human. They had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Some looked like normal people, but their eyes were cold and empty. Others had twisted, monstrous forms that defied explanation. These are not of your world, the entity said. They have been here longer than you realize, influencing events, shaping the course of history. Now, with humanity at its weakest, they will take control. I saw people bowing to these beings, not out of respect, but out of fear. They had power beyond anything humans had ever known. Some resisted, but their efforts were crushed instantly. Those who obeyed were rewarded, but at a terrible cost. They lost themselves. Their minds were no longer their own. Tears filled my eyes as I watched. I wanted to scream, to warn everyone, to tell them to wake up before it was too late. But I was just an observer, powerless to change what I was seeing. Then the entity turned to me. "This is not set in stone," he said. "The future is always changing, shaped by the choices made in the present. But time is running out. Humanity must choose now, before the point of no return." A deep sadness filled me. I understood what he meant. The destruction I had seen was not inevitable, but if people continued on their current path, it would become reality. The scene faded, and we were back in the void. I was shaken, my mind struggling to process everything I had just witnessed. But I knew this was only the beginning. There was more to see, more to understand. The entity stepped forward. "Come," he said, "there is still much to show you." And with that, we moved again, deeper into the unknown. As I stood frozen in the vast emptiness, the angelic being extended a hand toward me, and in an instant, the darkness around us shifted. I was no longer in a void, but hovering above the earth, watching scenes unfold before me as if time itself was unraveling. The being spoke without moving its lips, and its voice resonated inside my mind. "Look, Aaron, witness what has been, what is, and what is to come." I turned my gaze downward, and what I saw shook me to my core. I was shown the ancient past, humanity's origins, and the moments when divine intervention shaped civilization. Great empires rose and fell, their people blessed and cursed by the choices they made. I saw societies thriving when they followed the path of love, wisdom, and righteousness, only to crumble when greed, hatred, and deception took over. Then the vision changed, and I was shown the present. I saw the world as it is now, divided, broken, and lost. People were consumed by selfish desires, distracted by meaningless pursuits, and blind to the suffering around them. There were wars waged over power, corruption in every corner, and a growing darkness that spread like an unstoppable plague. Families were torn apart, morality abandoned, and truth replaced with comforting lies. Tears filled my eyes as I witnessed this reality. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Why do people choose this path?" The being's eyes were sorrowful, because free will is both a gift and a burden. Humanity was given the ability to choose, but with that freedom comes responsibility. Many have turned away from the light, seeking their own desires instead of seeking truth. The vision shifted again, and I was shown the future. What I saw made my heart pound with fear. I saw humanity standing at a crossroads. Two paths lay before them, one leading to destruction, the other to salvation. On the path of destruction, the world spiraled into chaos. Governments collapsed, violence erupted in every nation, and natural disasters increased in severity. Technology advanced, but instead of being used to uplift humanity, it was twisted into a tool of oppression. People became slaves to their own creations, their minds dulled by artificial pleasures while their souls withered away. On the path of salvation, I saw a different world. It was not perfect, but it was hopeful. People reconnected with their spiritual nature, choosing love over hatred, truth over deception, and unity over division. They lived in harmony with creation, using wisdom to build a future where all could thrive. Is this our destiny? I asked, trembling. Are we doomed to fall? The being looked at me with a piercing gaze. The choice is still yours. Humanity has not yet sealed its fate, but the time is short. The decisions made in the coming years will determine the final outcome. I felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. The weight of the future pressed heavily on my chest. How can I warn them? How can I make them see? The being extended its hand again, and a bright light enveloped me. You must tell them what you have seen, but many will not listen. They will mock you, ignore you, and even turn against you. Yet you must speak. For those who have ears to hear will awaken, and that will make all the difference. Before I could respond, the light grew blinding, and everything around me dissolved into pure energy. My consciousness was being pulled away, rushing back toward the physical world. The last thing I heard was the being's voice echoing in my soul. The time is near. Prepare. Then, just as suddenly as it all began, I gasped awake, back in my body, lying in a hospital bed. The angel turned to me, his expression filled with both sorrow and hope. Aaron, what you have seen is not set in stone. The fate of humanity hangs in the balance, and each soul plays a role in determining the final outcome. As his words sank in, I felt myself being pulled backward, as if an unseen force was drawing me away from the realm beyond. The beautiful yet terrifying visions began to blur, the celestial presence of the angel fading into a distant glow. I desperately wanted to stay, to ask more questions, to understand more, but it was too late. I awoke with a gasp, my body trembling, drenched in sweat. The hospital room was dimly lit, the steady beep of the monitors grounding me back into reality. A nurse rushed in, her eyes wide with surprise. "You're awake," she whispered in disbelief. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The weight of what I had witnessed pressed down on me like a mountain. I had seen the path that humanity was heading towards. I had seen the darkness looming over the world, but I had also seen the light, the hope that still flickered within every soul willing to turn back to God. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I realized that my life could never go back to how it was before. I had been given knowledge that I could not ignore. This experience was not meant to be locked away in my heart, forgotten with time. It was meant to be shared. Over the next few months, I struggled to find the words to describe what had happened to me. People listened, some with skepticism, others with curiosity. Many dismissed my story as the hallucinations of a man on the brink of death. But those who truly listened, those who had felt the growing unease in the world, those who had sensed that something was deeply wrong, they understood. They knew I was telling the truth. The message was clear. Humanity was at a crossroads. If we continued down the path of corruption, hatred, and ignorance, the darkness I had seen would come to pass. But if people turned back to love, to unity, to faith, if they truly sought God and His wisdom, then hope would prevail. The future was not written in stone. It was up to us to decide. My near-death experience was not just a vision, it was a warning. And though I was just one man, I knew that my purpose was to share what I had seen. If even one soul turned back to God because of my testimony, then my second chance at life would not be in vain. So I share this with you, not to invoke fear, but to awaken you. The fate of humanity is not beyond our control. We still have time to change, to choose the light over the darkness. The choice is ours. What will you choose?